Is Donald Trump the Antichrist? We're going to answer that question, but first we have to go to the book. Throughout history, different leaders have been identified as this man of lawlessness that Daniel, John, and Jesus all prophesied about. Napoleon, Hitler, Pol Pot, Anwar Sadat, Saddam Hussein, Osama bin Laden, every generation had their pick. And today we have our own cast of characters. Kim Jong-un, King Charles, Vladimir Putin, Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, and of course, the man that nobody can stop talking about, Donald J. Trump. But what does the Bible say? The word Antichrist only shows up in 4 verses, all of them in John's letters. But the figure behind that word shows across the whole Bible. Different names, same agenda. Daniel calls him the little horn. He's a ruler who rises fast, speaks against the Most High, wages war on God's people, and he attempts to change the times and the law. That's in Daniel chapter 7. Paul calls him the man of lawlessness, the one who seats himself in the temple of God, proclaiming himself to be God. And he can't come until the great falling away happens. Until then, there's something restraining him. When that restraint is removed, then he's revealed. That's in 2 Thessalonians 2. John calls him the beast from the sea. He has 7 heads and 10 horns. He has a mouth full of blasphemy, and he gets his throne from the dragon. He has authority over every tribe, people, language, and nation. And then one of his heads receives a fatal wound, and the wound heals. Don't worry, we're definitely coming back to that one. That's the portrait that Scripture paints. So who is it? Before we answer that, there's something this same writer tells us. Therefore, we know that it is the last hour. Many antichrists have come. Not one, many. Jesus said the same thing in Matthew 24. False Christs, false prophets, signs and wonders that are designed to deceive. So here's the picture. There is a final figure coming, the big bad, the dragon's Vader. But he doesn't show up cold. He has opening acts, prototypes, rough drafts. History's full of them, and we're going to talk about a few of them right now. Let's go all the way back to Genesis 3. There's a serpent in the garden, and the first words out of his mouth aren't an attack, they're a question. Did God actually say? That's not rebellion, that's a seed of doubt. It's self-reliance. You will be like God. You don't need him to tell you who you are. You can figure that out for yourself. And the seed grows. By Genesis 11, humanity is building a tower at Babel. They have one language and they have one project, one ambition. Let us make a name for ourselves. A kingdom built without God. That's the first empire. What does God do? He scatters them. Deuteronomy 32 tells us that he divided the nations and he set boundaries for the peoples. The kingdoms of the earth are distributed. And from that point on, the dragon has a system. He has a network of nations. He has an infrastructure of power. And he's looking for someone that'll run it. Fast forward a few thousand years and Jesus steps into the Jordan River. He comes up out of the water and the Father speaks from heaven. Matthew 4:3 tells us, and the tempter came to him and said, "If you are the Son of God." The Father just said who he was. And Satan's opening move is to put a question mark where God put a period. We know the story. There's 3 temptations. But let's talk about that third one. Satan takes Jesus to a high mountain and he shows him all the kingdoms of the world. All of them. Every nation that was parceled out at Babel. And he tells him, all these I will give you if you'll just fall down and worship me. Jesus already had authority over all of it. So what was Satan really offering? It wasn't the destination. It was a shortcut. You can have the throne without the cross. You can have the crown without the suffering. You can have the kingdom without the emptying. And Jesus said no. He emptied himself. But so many have said yes. And they kept saying yes. In Genesis 10:8-9 it says that Cush fathered Nimrod. He was the first on earth to be a mighty man. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. O Nimrod, Genesis 10, the first empire builder after the flood. His name became a byword, not for being dangerous, but for being foolish. And then we have Pharaoh. Moses walks in, he says, God says, let my people go. Pharaoh had a choice. He could have done what was right, and that would have settled it. But according to him, they weren't God's people. They were Pharaoh's. So what happens? We find it in Exodus 8:15. But when Pharaoh saw that there was a respite, he hardened his heart and would not listen to them, as the Lord had said. Let's read that carefully. He hardened his own heart. Before God ever hardened Pharaoh's heart, Pharaoh hardened it himself. God confirmed the choice that he already made. And then he was disposed of. And of course, we got to mention Ahab and Jezebel. They tried to split the Antichrist title. They killed the prophets. They promoted Baal and Asherah worship. Ahab was a weak king with a strong queen who installed state religion by force. And then there's Nebuchadnezzar. This dude built a 90-foot golden statue on the plains of Dura. The music played. The order was clear. Bow or burn. But Nebuchadnezzar was complicated. He couldn't decide who he wanted to serve. Daniel 4 says that God humbled him, took his mind, put him in a field with the animals, and when he came back to, he acknowledged the Most High. Then we have Alexander the Great, who conquered the known world by the time he was 30. His empire fractured when he died, and out of those fragments came a man who would fill the whole card. Julius Caesar. He declared himself dictator for life. The Roman Senate deified him after his death. The empire that would crucify Christ was being built in real time. So what does any of this have to do with Donald Trump? We're getting there, but first, let's look at what Jesus says. In Matthew 24, the disciples are asking Jesus about the end. And Jesus says something that would have made every Jewish listener's stomach drop. He quotes Daniel. So when you see the abomination of desolations spoken of by the prophet Daniel standing in the holy place. And then Matthew breaks the fourth wall and says, let the reader understand. They knew exactly what he was talking about because it had already happened. Antiochus IV was a Greek king who took the throne of the Seleucid Empire in 175 BC. The first thing that he did was give himself a title, Epiphanes. You know what it means? God manifest. The Jews had a different name for him. They called him Epimanes, which means the madman. First Maccabees records what happens next. This is a historical document. And it says that he marched into Jerusalem, he disposed the high priest, he outlawed the Torah, he made it a capital crime to own a copy of Scripture, he criminalized circumcision, and he banned the Sabbath. Then he walks into the Holy of Holies, the most sacred space on earth, the place where only the high priest could enter once a year, and Antiochus erected an altar to Zeus right there. And on that altar, he sacrificed a pig. You know how they feel about pigs. That's the abomination of desolation. That's what Daniel prophesied. That's what Jesus pointed back to. To the disciples, this wasn't just a future mystery. This was a historical event. This was something they learned about. A real man with a real name who desecrated the house of God. And his method wasn't military conquest. It was cultural reprogramming. He didn't destroy the temple. He just replaced what was inside it. There's an ancient record of this. It's not scripture, but I believe it's valuable. 2 Maccabees 6 tells us that he forced the Jews to eat pork, to march in processions honoring Dionysius. You remember him, the dude from the Olympics? And to abandon every distinctive of their faith. If you refused, you died. And the opening acts kept coming. You have Nero, the emperor when John's churches were reading Revelation for the first time. This is who they would have immediately thought of. The man who burned Rome and blamed the Christians, who lit believers on fire in his garden as human torches, who beheaded Paul. Now Nero might not have been the man of lawlessness, but he definitely posed for the portrait. Then there's the mission. He took the title Lord and God. He made emperor worship mandatory. If you wanted to do business in the trade guilds of Asia Minor, you burned a pinch of incense and you said, Caesar is Lord. If you refused, then the gates shut. And then there were the popes. For centuries, the reformers looked at Rome and they said, that's him. Luther called the papacy the Antichrist. Calvin agreed. Whether you agree with their theology or not, the pattern was there. A religious leader sitting in a seat of spiritual authority, claiming to speak for God and demanding allegiance. So let's talk about Henry VIII. He broke from Rome. He declared himself the head of the church and executed anyone who disagreed. And then there was the Haman wannabe with the goofy looking mustache. He manipulated the nation with propaganda. He replaced the cross with the swastika, and he nearly succeeded. Xi Jinping is running concentration camps and demolishing churches. Kim Jong-un demands worship by law. Putin invades sovereign nations with tanks blessed with holy water. The pattern didn't stop at the 20th century, but there's one name that nobody can figure out, present company included. So let's talk about the obvious. July 13, 2024, Butler, Pennsylvania. There's a rally and there's gunshots, and Donald Trump goes down. Secret Service swarms. We all remember. Then he stands back up, fist in the air, blood running down his cheek, and says, fight, fight, fight. The whole world saw it, and it was electric. I don't know about you, but I couldn't help but go to Revelation 13. Its mortal wound was healed, and the whole earth marveled as they followed the beast. And boy, did they marvel. Do you remember people wearing bandages on their ear at the Republican National Convention? That iconic picture, merch flying off the shelves. Then November came, and he won in one of the largest landslides in recent memory. Won every swing state, picked up traction with every voting bloc. He was given a mandate on a silver platter. And in the middle of all this, Israel's at war. So Donald Trump decides one day it will be a good idea to post an image of a golden statue of himself in Gaza. And then Daniel chapter 3 come to mind, Nebuchadnezzar's golden statue on the plains of Dura. Then came that AI-generated image of Trump depicted as Jesus, the Pope, a doctor, who knows. But he's healing the sick and his hands are glowing. Posted it to his own platform, Truth Social, and folks called it the spirit of Antichrist. Tucker Carlson spent 43 minutes on his podcast building the case. The Pope criticized the administration, and Trump said that he likes crime. The parallels are real and they're a little eerie. And they're why you click on this video. And that's exactly how proof texting works. You take a verse, You lay it next to a headline and it fits. It always fits. It fit Nero, it fit Antiochus, it fit the Pope in the 16th century, and it fits today. But that's not prophecy. It's just recognition. The majority of the names that I listed, they're no longer living. Are they the Antichrist? No. But were they an opening act? Maybe. Some of them, definitely. John actually refers to one by name. Well, a number, but that's our next video. So what separates speculation from sound doctrine? Anybody can grab a verse and put it on a headline. What does Scripture say when we read it as one story? One story that's still playing out. The Bible gives us the markers. Not speculation, not cable news, and not your favorite podcast. And you could test this on any leader who has ever lived. So here's the Antichrist bingo card. 1. Does this person demand worship in place of Christ? The prefix anti doesn't mean against, it means in place of. A substitute Christ, a counterfeit Messiah. 1 John 2:22 says, "Who is the liar but he who denies that Jesus is the Christ? This is the Antichrist, he who denies the Father and the Son." 2. Does this person deny that Jesus is God come in the flesh? 1 John 4:3 tells us that every spirit that does not confess Jesus is not from God. That is the spirit of the Antichrist, which you heard was coming and now is in the world today. The spirit of Antichrist denies the incarnation. Not just there is no God, but more specific, Jesus isn't him. And 3, does this person persecute the saints systematically? We find this in Revelation 13:7. I'm not talking about occasional pushback. I'm talking about an organized, sustained war on God's people. 4, does this person control the economy to enforce allegiance? Remember Revelation 13, verses 16 and 17? Also it causes all, both small and great, both rich and poor, both free and slave, to be marked on the right hand or the forehead, so that no one can buy or sell unless he has the mark. That is, the name of the beast or the number of his name. Now notice, the text doesn't say barcode, it doesn't say microchip, it doesn't say vaccine. Those things get attached to this verse a lot, but here's the litmus test. Does mandatory worship of a specific figure accompany this? If not, then it's not the mark. Could some of these technologies be a setup, a test run for what's to come? Absolutely, I believe many of them are. But I'll let you form your own conclusions on that one. 5. Does this person come against Israel and desecrate the holy place? Antiochus did it with a pig and an altar to Zeus. And the final figure is going to do it again. 6. Does this person claim authority and change established laws in sacred times? An attempt to rewrite divine order. New calendar, new commandments, new definition of what's sacred. There's your bingo card. 6 markers straight from the text. Now hold it up to every name that we just walked through. So, is Donald Trump the Antichrist? No. Is he an opening act? An Antichrist type figure paving the way? I don't think so. He is who he is. A flawed human being with a lot of power, and there are a lot of those in every generation. Paul told Timothy, "I urge that supplications, prayers, intercessions, and thanksgivings be made for all people, for kings and for all who are in high positions." That's in 1 Timothy 2. We need to pray for our leaders, all of them, not just the ones that we voted for. The spirit of Antichrist is alive. John says so in the 1st century. It was active then, it's active now. It attaches itself to power, it counterfeits worship, and it offers a kingdom without a cross. The man of lawlessness? Paul said there's something restraining him. And when that restraint is removed, he's going to be revealed. That hasn't happened yet, at least not that we can see. So what do we do in the meantime? Think about how they train bank tellers to spot counterfeit money. They don't study the counterfeits, they study the real thing. They handle the genuine bills so many times that when a fake one hits their fingers, they feel the difference before they even see it. The beast keeps dying and getting back up. The lamb died once and will never die again. And if we believe in him, neither shall we. Know the real thing. Study the real thing. Sit in the word until the counterfeit can't fool you. That's what Jesus told his disciples in Matthew 24. See that no one leads you astray. Don't be deceived. Barcode, microchip, vaccine. What is the mark of the beast? And why does everyone seem to get it wrong? That's what we're going to talk about next. I'll see you then. God bless you.